Don't let him sit at the main table. He'll embarrass us." She didn't know I was standing right behind her. My son's fiancée, this woman named Kristen, 29 years old, daughter of a commercial real estate developer from Scottsdale, was whispering to her mother while adjusting the place cards at the rehearsal dinner table. Her voice was quiet, but not quiet enough. The room was all white linen and crystal glasses and centerpieces that probably cost more than my truck payment. I was still wearing my Carhartt jacket because I'd driven 4 hours straight from Bakersfield and hadn't had time to change. My hands were rough. They've always been rough. 40 years of working land does that to a man. I stood there for a moment, just a moment. Then I turned and walked to the bar and ordered a club soda and told myself to breathe. My son Kevin, my boy, 32 years old, who I raised alone after his mother passed when he was 11, came over and put his hand on my shoulder. "Dad, you made it." He said it like a question, like he wasn't sure I would. I looked at him. I looked at the woman across the room, who would be his wife in 2 days. I looked at the table where they'd moved my place card to the far corner, next to the kitchen entrance. "I made it," I said. "I want to tell you something about where I come from, because it matters for everything that comes after. I grew up in the Central Valley of California, outside of Fresno. My father was a crop farmer, almonds and pistachios, mostly, and when he died, he left me 43 acres and a mortgage and a pickup truck with 200,000 miles on it. I was 24 years old. I didn't have a college degree. I had calluses and a work ethic that would have made your back hurt just watching it. I spent the next 15 years learning every inch of that land. I made mistakes. Lost a whole almond crop to a late frost in '98 and nearly lost the farm. Sold my father's watch to make payroll for the 2 guys who worked for me. But I kept going. Because that's what you do when the land is yours. You don't walk away from it. By the time Kevin was in high school, I'd expanded to 210 acres. By the time he graduated college, first in our family, I'd quietly bought into a water rights consortium that turned out to be worth considerably more than almonds. I don't talk about money. Never have. I drive the same kind of truck my father drove. I wear the same kind of clothes. My neighbors in Bakersfield know me as Holt. Just Holt, the guy who waves when you pass his driveway. My full name is Eugene Holt Mercer, but nobody calls me Eugene. Kevin met Kristen at a conference in San Diego 2 years ago. She was in hotel development. Her father, a man named Douglas Pratt, had built a small empire buying distressed commercial properties in Arizona and Nevada after 2008. They had money, real money, and they wore it the way some people wear perfume. Everywhere, all at once, so you couldn't ignore it. When Kevin brought her home the first time, she looked around my kitchen, the old linoleum, the farm table I'd had since Kevin was a kid, and smiled this thin smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. She said, "Charming." The way people say charming when they mean the opposite. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Big city girl, first time on a working farm. I'd hosted plenty of people who didn't know what to make of the place. But then there was the Thanksgiving where she suggested Kevin invest in an apartment closer to their jobs in Phoenix, and maybe use the Bakersfield property as a seasonal retreat. She said the word property, like the farm, was a vacation cabin. Like 40 years of my life was a weekend getaway. Kevin didn't say anything. He looked at his plate. I noticed that. I filed it away. The engagement happened 6 months later. She called me herself, which I appreciated. Kevin got on the phone, and he was so happy, genuinely happy, that I pushed everything else down and said, "That's wonderful, son. I'm happy for you." And I was. I swear I was. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in April at a resort outside of Sedona, the kind of place where the rooms have outdoor soaking tubs and the menu doesn't have prices. Her family was paying for most of it. That's what she told Kevin. And Kevin told me, and I understood what it meant. It meant her family was in charge. 3 weeks before the wedding, Douglas Pratt called me. I was out in the south field, checking on the irrigation system when my phone rang. Unknown Phoenix number. I almost didn't pick up. "Holt," he said after I answered. "Douglas Pratt. I think it's time we had a real conversation." He drove up to Bakersfield the following Thursday. Alone, which surprised me. He sat at my kitchen table, that same old farm table, and he looked around the house the same way Kristen had. Same thin smile. Then he got down to business. He said he had a development opportunity, a mixed-use project outside of Tucson, commercial and residential, 3 phases. Conservative projections showed a 16% return over 5 years. He was looking for a capital partner, someone who could commit liquidity. He slid a folder across the table. The buy-in was listed at $800,000. I looked at the folder. I looked at him. "What does this have to do with me?" I said. He smiled. "You're family now, or you will be. I like to keep things in the family." I nodded slowly. "I'll think about it," I said. He stood up, buttoned his jacket, looked around my kitchen one more time. "Don't think too long," he said. "And Hood, maybe consider picking up something nicer to wear to the rehearsal dinner. Kristen has a lot of important people coming." He drove back to Phoenix. I sat at that table for a long time after he left. I called my attorney that evening. His name is Beaumont, Wallace Beaumont, out of Fresno, been handling my business affairs for 18 years. I told him about the folder. He said, "Scan it and send it to me tonight." I did. He called back the next morning. "Holt," he said, "this project is real. It's also significantly over-leveraged, and 2 of the 3 anchor tenants he's counting on haven't signed yet. He needs liquid capital to close a gap before the bank notices." He paused. "He needs you more than he's letting on." I said, "How much does he need, based on what I can find?" "At least $1 million too, maybe more." I thanked Beaumont and hung up. I did not call Douglas Pratt back. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I arrived at the resort at 6:15. The valet looked at my truck. He actually looked at it, this long, slow look, before he took the keys. I've had that truck for 9 years. It runs fine. I found the room, walked in, and that's when I heard her. Kristen, to her mother, voice low, hand half covering her mouth. "Don't let him sit at the main table. He'll embarrass us." Her mother glanced over and saw me. Kristen turned. For a moment, nobody moved. Then she smiled, that same thin smile, and said, "Holt, you made it. We were just talking about the seating chart." "I heard," I said. The smile didn't waver. That impressed me in a cold sort of way. Kevin appeared and walked me to the bar and asked me how the drive was. I told him fine. I watched his eyes. He hadn't heard what she said. He'd been across the room, and I decided right there not to tell him. Not yet. This was his rehearsal dinner. I wasn't going to be the thing that ruined it. I sat at the corner table near the kitchen entrance, and I ate my salmon and I listened to the speeches. Her father gave one. He talked about legacy and vision and building something that lasts. He looked at Kevin when he said it. He did not look at me. Kevin's speech was about Kristen, how she made him want to be better, how she saw the world with clarity. It was a good speech. He meant every word. I could tell because I know my son's face, and that was his real face. I clapped with everyone else. Driving back to my room that night, I made a decision. I need to back up and tell you something I haven't told you yet. 3 years ago, before Kevin met Kristen, a water technology company out of Fresno approached me about buying into their Series B round. They were building filtration infrastructure for agricultural operations, the kind of thing that matters a lot in a drought state. I knew the founder. I knew what the Central Valley was heading toward. I put in $2.3 million, which at the time was a stretch. Last year, they got acquired by a national utility conglomerate. My $2.3 million became $14.7 million. I didn't change my truck. I didn't change my house. I called Beaumont, set up a proper trust structure, and kept farming almonds. Nobody knew. Not Kevin, not my neighbors, not Douglas Pratt. After the rehearsal dinner, I called Beaumont from my room. "I want to move some things around," I said, "and I want it on paper before Saturday." He said, "How much are we talking?" I told him. There was a pause. "I'll have documents ready by Friday morning," he said. Friday was the day Kristen's family had organized a welcome brunch at the resort. Casual, they said. Come as you are. I came as I am. Douglas Pratt found me at the buffet line and positioned himself beside me like we were old friends. Holt, glad you could make it. He loaded his plate. Have you had a chance to look at that folder? I did, I said. And I had my attorney look at it too. He stopped, just for a second. Smart, he said, recovering. Always good to have counsel look things over. He said your anchor tenants haven't signed, I said. Said the bank's going to have questions about the capital gap. Douglas Pratt's jaw tightened. He put down the serving spoon very carefully. I don't know where he got that, he said. He's thorough, I said. I pay him to be. We stood there for a moment, two men by a breakfast buffet, and something shifted in the air between us. I'm going to be direct with you, he said, quietly. My daughter is marrying your son. That makes us family. Family helps each other. Yes, it does, I said. Family also tells the truth. I took my plate and found a table by the window. Saturday morning. Wedding day. Kevin called me at 8 a.m. He sounded nervous in the good way, the way you sound when something enormous and wonderful is about to happen to you. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. The weather. Whether I'd remembered to pack my good shoes. I had. Dad, he said, right before we hung up, I know this week has been a lot. Her family is. They're a lot. But she makes me happy. She really does. I know, I said. And I meant it. Whatever I thought of her family, whatever I'd heard at that rehearsal dinner, he loved her. That was real. I'm proud of you, I told him. I've been proud of you since you were 11 years old, and you got yourself up every morning and went to school even when you didn't want to. He was quiet for a second. Dad, go get married, I said. I'll be there. The ceremony was beautiful. Sedona in April. Red rocks in the distance, this open-air pavilion with the light coming through at an angle that made everything look like a painting. Kristin walked down the aisle, and she was genuinely beautiful, I can say that honestly, and Kevin watched her the way men watch something they can't believe is real. I sat in the front row on the groom's side, 3 chairs, me, Kevin's aunt from Sacramento, and 1 empty seat where Kevin's mother would have been. I held it together. I always hold it together. The reception was outdoors under string lights. I danced with Kevin's aunt. I shook hands with people I didn't know. I ate the steak, which was good. I avoided Douglas Pratt, who seemed to be avoiding me too. It was around 8 o'clock when Kristin found me at my table. She sat down, just sat down, no preamble, and looked at me directly for probably the first time all week. Can we talk? She said. Sure, I said. She folded her hands on the table. My father said you declined the investment. I did. He's not happy. I imagine not. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said he told me he used the word difficult. That you were going to be difficult. I looked at her, this young woman in her wedding dress, on her wedding night, having this conversation. I felt something soften in me, just a little. Kristin, I said, I don't know you very well. We haven't had much chance. But I know my son, and I know he loves you. So I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to hear it as someone who is on your side, not against you. She waited. Your father's project needs more money than he told you. He came to me because he thought I was an easy mark. A farmer with some land, maybe a little cash, somebody who'd be grateful to be included. He was trying to use Kevin and this wedding to get to my resources. I paused. That's not family helping family. That's something else. She didn't move. I'm not difficult, I said. I'm just not naive. She looked down at the table. Her hands were still folded. After a long moment she said very quietly, I didn't know. I believe you, I said. And I did. She looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she held it. What did my father actually need the money for? Ask him, I said. Tonight, ask him directly. Watch his face when you do. She nodded slowly. She stood up. She smoothed her dress. Then she said, I heard what my mother told you. At the rehearsal dinner, she looked at me. I'm sorry. She shouldn't have. I shouldn't have let her think that was okay. I nodded. You should have sat at the main table, she said. I was fine where I was, I said. She almost smiled. Just barely. Then she walked back to her husband. 2 weeks after the wedding, Kevin called me on a Tuesday evening. He sounded different, not bad different, but like someone who'd just understood something they hadn't before. Dad, he said. Did you know about Mum's life insurance, the old policy? What do you mean? Kristin was going through some paperwork and she found. Dad, there's a trust. There's a trust in my name that I never knew about. I was quiet. Dad, how much money do we have? There it was. That question. I'd set up the trust for Kevin the week before the wedding, the way Beaumont and I had discussed. Not a gift. A structure. Money set aside for his future, for his children if he had them, protected in a way that couldn't be influenced or leveraged by anyone, including Douglas Pratt, including any business deal that might come his way from the wrong direction. Son, I said, that's yours. It always was going to be yours. Dad. His voice cracked just a little. You drive a 20-year-old truck. It runs fine, I said. He laughed. That surprised me. He laughed the way you laugh when you don't know what else to do, when something big is happening and your body doesn't have a better response. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Because I didn't want money to be the thing between us, I said. I wanted you to know me as your father, not as whatever I am on paper. He was quiet for a long time. I should have defended you, he said. At the rehearsal dinner, I didn't hear what Mum said, but I saw your face when I came over. I should have asked. I should have said something to her family a long time ago. You're saying it now, I said. It's not the same. No, I said, but it's not nothing either. Douglas Pratt's Tucson project went into distress status about 3 months later. The anchor tenants had, in fact, not signed. The bank called in a portion of the construction loan. I heard this through Beaumont, not through Kevin. Kevin heard it through Kristin. She called her father the night of the wedding and asked him directly, and his face did exactly what I told her it would do. She didn't tell me the details of that conversation. She didn't need to. What I know is this. Douglas Pratt did not ask me for money again. He did not visit Bakersfield. He sends a card at Christmas, and Kevin relays brief pleasantries at family gatherings, and we have a careful, cordial distance that suits us both fine. Kristin surprised me. Over the months after the wedding, she started calling more. Not to discuss her father's finances. To talk. She called once to ask how I knew when almonds were ready to harvest. She called another time because she'd seen something about California water rights on the news and remembered I'd mentioned it. She asked real questions. She listened to the answers. She is not the person I thought she was in that Scottsdale resort. Or maybe she is. And she is also more than that. People are like that sometimes. Last Thanksgiving, Kevin and Kristin drove up to Bakersfield. She helped me in the kitchen. She was terrible at it, and she knew it, and she laughed at herself, which I respected. She stood at my kitchen window and looked out at the south field going gold in the late afternoon light and said, I didn't understand what this was. Before, I didn't understand what a place like this means. Most people don't, I said, until they do. Kevin came in from the porch and the three of us ate at that old farm table. The same linoleum, the same chairs, the same everything, and it was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Not because anything was perfect, because it was real. After dinner, Kevin helped me with the dishes, the way he used to when he was a kid, and when we were done, he dried his hands and said, Dad, I'm glad you didn't sell the farm. I'm never selling the farm, I said. I know, he said. That's what I mean, I'm glad. I looked at my son, 32 years old, his mother's eyes, his grandmother's stubbornness, 40 years of this land in his blood, whether he knows it or not. Me too, I said. And I meant it more than anything I'd said all year.